confusion in terms of what is being proposed. But finally, this is a Senate, this is a House of Reps that are led by people who began their career by saying that anything President Tinubu brings to this National Assembly will be approved. So we should not waste additional saliva. The National Assembly is going to approve everything because it's a rubber stamp assembly. And they say that they are very loyal to President Tinubu. And they say this is all about renewed hope. We're still waiting for hope to materialize.
6.2 trillion. So that means the deficit is about 14 trillion from this cycle. Also, there's been lots of conversation. I think it was a budget I was talking about running other budgets also pari passu. So what's the conversation about that? Because the response from the government side was not, solid enough. You have a lot of this budget running. The question is, what's the effect? We just have a very top line of recurrence because the cost of governance itself is very high. And when I saw part of the recurrent, about 3 trillion, I'm asking, is it also part of the money they're going to use to buy his jet for him and his vice president's jets? Hitherto, we have seen the immense waste that goes on in this government. Till today, most of the waste has not been accounted for. Most of a lot of the frivolous spending. So I think it's also best for President Tinubu also to really, tighten his belt too by showing Nigerians that he's really realistic about this talk about tightening his belt. And that's why all the governors are complaining. Look at the PDP governors. He's failed. That's what they're saying. And when people from his own party like Aliu Ndume, which I might not agree with, but I give my full support to this morning, for saying the things he said that, things are not well, and the next day remove him as chief whip. So we've increased the deficit to what expense? How are they going to fund some of this? They said, they're going to go to the banks. There's a windfall tax. It pretty much reminds me of the UK when the energy companies had a windfall tax also because of energy prices. They are taking from the banks as regards that. But taking from the banks, how is this money going to go in reinvestment into the economy? I mean, you are talking about public works, healthcare, and all of that. What are the specificity of these projects, and how are we going to ensure that it's not just going to be another wide relevant project, that nothing comes out of it? Secondly, the part I have a problem with, I know for the sake of health, we need to cut sugar, but the tax on sugary drink is going to destroy this country. The beverage sector employs a lot of people. They are dealing with a lot of production costs and increase in electricity tariff that just went up. A very prominent hotel in Lagos, I hear their bill was over 200 million. Some mid-sized hotel owner was talking to me yesterday. He said his bill is over 30 million now in electricity. The beverage companies are dealing with this. You still want to put a sugar tax on top of it. They had muted this idea before. They pushed back. Because the first thing these companies will do is workers will have to go. I think Mr. Wale Edun should think critically about this beverage tax they now want to put in. I know we are in that shape, we need to look for money, but that also means we should also cut our coat according to our cloth.
Dr. Batu.
Okay. At the beginning of this administration, we were told specifically that the problem was revenue, not necessarily tax or GDP to debt ratio. And you'll find a coordinating minister of the economy in the person of Wale Edun, trying all he can to fulfill that objective of saying, okay, how do we raise revenue in a way that we don't impose hardship on the ordinary people of Nigeria? And hence, you have all of these measures coming in. In this latest proposal of trying to raise 6.2 trillion naira, bringing the 2024 appropriation budget to 33.7 billion. They have now proposed that 3 trillion naira should be withdrawn from the consolidated revenue. Now, what the government is doing, we have to see it against the background of the recent protests over the fact that since this administration came into power, They've been asking for more money, more amendments. In fact, I think it was Waziri Adio who wrote a piece, commenting on what was in the public domain, that this administration was implementing 4 budgets simultaneously. One senator brought up the issue and it was suspended, when he said we were operating more than one budget, but later it became a big issue. Where are we with that? How many budgets are we implementing? Because the 2023 budget, there was a variation on it, an amendment. There was another amendment. There was now another amendment on 2024 budget. Now there is this amendment on 2024 budget, appropriation bill as it is called again. 4 different budgets at the same time. Waziri Adio's argument when he wrote that piece is that it creates confusion and it raises very poignant questions about transparency and accountability. That's about the additional money that they are trying to raise. Ordinary Nigerian civil society, I won't be surprised if SERAP comes up and says, well, all the additional amendments that you have been getting, what have you done with it? And SERAP will go and file a freedom of information request, appropriately, and even go to court subsequently to seek clarification on what government is doing. That's number one. On the fiscal side, they have now said they are going to introduce banks windfall tax. On the surface of it, you may well say, yes, the banks are making humongous profit. We have said it on this table, that why are the banks making profit when every Nigerian is growing lean? My stomach, for example, which used to bulge, has reduced because of this widespread epidemic of empty pockets. I've grown leaner. And so it is with other people. People who don't even have as much protoplasm as Ruben Abati. They've also grown leaner. So why is it that the banks are growing fat at this time? So there will be many that will see from that side, but there will be many also who will say that this is controversial. As Senator Seriake Dixon pointed out yesterday, that this could be a very controversial proposal, taxing the banks. If you are taxing the banks, are you also taxing the oil companies, as they did at a point last year in Britain? The second tax that they have introduced is what they call beverages tax, which is sugar. I think sugar tax, simply. Yeah, there's a sugar reduction coalition in Nigeria, and they have been arguing that diabetes is a major problem in Nigeria. It's not only in Nigeria that diabetes is a problem. It's a problem all over the world. And in England, I cite England again, they are trying to deal with obesity. So if the Nigerian government says we're going to do sugar tax, okay, what are the implications for the business? For people who are involved in the beverages business, who are already complaining as members of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria that we do not have an enabling environment. The way to control diabetes, is it through sugar tax, or is it through lifestyle adjustment, public education, telling people that if you consume too much sugar, you will pay for it at some point later, depending on your DNA composition. So again, to use Waziri Adio's word, confusion in terms of what is being proposed. But finally, this is a Senate, this is a House of Reps that are led by people who began their career by saying that anything President Tinubu brings to this National Assembly will be approved. So we should not waste additional saliva. The National Assembly is going to approve everything because it's a rubber stamp assembly. And they say that they are very loyal to President Tinubu. And they say this is all about renewed hope. We're still waiting for hope to materialize.